It is June 30th, 1908. For weeks, the small town of Anchigorsk, Siberia, has been enjoying an unseasonably warm summer. But now a dark cloud is on the horizon, and as it rolls closer, people begin to feel a strange chill despite the heat. Then they hear a roar like thunder and see a bright light in the sky. When the light fades, a deafening blast of air blasts through the valley. People are thrown to the ground and their houses collapse around them. Those who look up see a giant mushroom cloud rising into the sky. In the surrounding forests, millions of trees are instantly flattened, their tops stripped away as if mowed down by an invisible scythe. The blast is felt thousands of kilometers away. But when investigators arrive at the site, they find no impact crater. There is no sign of an object that might have caused the explosion. And so begins one of the strangest mysteries in modern history, the Tunguska Event. Until today, no one knows for sure what caused the explosion. But some say it was a comet, others insist it was something else entirely. Now, this isn't your typical comet story. Because while comets are often called dirty snowballs, they're not actually made of ice. Instead, they're largely composed of rock and dust. And while most of the solar system's roughly 4,000 known comets are fairly small, some are many kilometers across. And while comets are mostly known for their spectacular tails, that's not how they got their name. Instead, the word comet comes from the Greek word for long hair, and that is a description of what you would have seen if you looked up in the night sky in 1908. Because while the Tunguska event was first spotted in the afternoon, observers saw long, thin tails stretching out behind it for days afterward. But that is where the comet theory starts to fall apart. Because while such an object could certainly cause an explosion, it would also leave behind a lot more than just a flattened forest. A team of researchers led by astronomer David Gitt of the University of California, Los Angeles has argued that the explosion was likely caused by a small comet that fragmented in the upper atmosphere. But according to simulations run by the team, even a 2-kilometer-wide comet wouldn't have left much of a crater either. So that's not very helpful. And this isn't the only unusual thing about the Tunguska event. While the blast flattened an area of forest the size of Connecticut, it didn't blow the tops off every tree. In fact, some of the trees near the epicenter had their tops bent, but still attached, and all of the trees were completely obliterated in a circle around the epicenter. That doesn't make any sense. If the force of the explosion was centered somewhere underneath the forest floor, shouldn't all the trees have been blown over or snapped off? Even stranger, there were no reports of a meteor or comet in the weeks before the explosion. And while eyewitness reports are often unreliable, there were hundreds of people living within 50 kilometers of the blast who reported seeing nothing unusual in the sky. And yet, they all heard the explosion and felt the shockwave. So, was it a comet? Perhaps. But whatever caused the Tunguska event happened suddenly and unexpectedly. It wasn't something that could be predicted from the ground. So how could it have been so big? Well, that depends on what exactly it was. A group of Russian scientists believes the explosion was caused by an anti-air nuclear device being tested in secret by the military. Sounds crazy. Well, remember, this was just 2 years before the start of World War I. And Russia wanted to modernize its military, so it began secretly testing rockets and bombs. This might explain why no one saw the explosion coming and why the blast was so powerful. But it doesn't explain why there was no crater. Perhaps the explosion was caused by something else entirely, like a meteor that exploded in midair. According to this theory, the object was about 20 meters wide and weighed almost 11,000 kilograms. But that's just a guess, based on the amount of energy released during the explosion, which is estimated to have been between 10 and 12 megatons of TNT. To put that in perspective, the largest nuke ever detonated on Earth was about 60 times less powerful. But while a meteor would explain the lack of a crater, it would unexplain why the trees were blown over in such a strange pattern or why all of the treetops were stripped away. In fact, it should have rained down debris over a much larger area, so maybe something else entirely is responsible. Whatever it was, it exploded with the force of a large nuclear weapon without leaving any radiation behind, leveled a forest the size of Connecticut without leaving much of a mark on the landscape. And that is the real mystery of the Tunguska event. Now, I want to know what you think. Do you have any theories about what caused the Tunguska event? Share your thoughts. below. Also, thank you for watching this episode, and thanks especially to our supporters who make these videos possible.